They warned me that she was dangerous, but the alien vampire woman just wanted to be loved. The transmission came through at 3:17 in the ship's cycle, right as I was trying to recalibrate the coffee synthesizer, which had started producing something more akin to motor oil with a grudge. A warning chirped across the console. Encrypted, level 5 clearance, and pulsing like a heartbeat. I ignored it for a moment. The last time I opened one of those, I spent 3 days trying to explain to an interplanetary tribunal why I thought smuggling artisanal moon cheese wasn't technically a crime. But this message had weight, not the usual government paranoia or debt collection threats. It was short. Director, do not engage. Subject, Illyra. Species, Vampirian. Location, Drift 9. Status, uncontained. Dangerous. Irresistible. Now, I'm not a smart man. I once tried to fix a hyperdrive with duct tape in good intentions. But even I could tell the use of irresistible was more than a little unprofessional. It practically winked at me, and it definitely didn't sound like standard protocol from the Intergalactic Hazard Agency. More like someone who'd made the same mistake they were warning me about, which naturally made me all the more curious. Marnie, my ship's AI, clicked into life as I rerouted course vectors. "You're ignoring a direct planetary security alert," it said, voice as crisp as a scolding librarian. "Also, you still haven't paid your docking fines on Proxima Port 7. I like to think of them as surprise taxes. This is the 6th time you've rerouted to Drift 9. Do I need to remind you of what happened last time? That pirate monkey was a fluke. You lost a chess game to it, then gave it our fuel reserves." "Charity," I said, flipping the ignition. "Interstellar kindness." "Interstellar idiocy," Marnie muttered, then went quiet. Its version of sulking. The Wanderlight groaned as it slipped into warp, stars smearing across the viewport like melting silver. I leaned back in the pilot's chair, trying not to think about the words from the message. Dangerous, irresistible, Vampirian. I'd heard of them, of course. Beings from the far edges of the Andromeda Rift, born in gravity wells and shadow, known for feeding not just on blood but emotion, memory, the soul's flavor, not just the body's, and supposedly extinct. But I'd also heard of quantum squirrels, and those turned out to be drunk raccoons with LED implants. The universe had a way of making myths walk, talk, and sometimes flirt. Drift 9 appeared like a bruise against the stars. A mining colony turned way station, turned black market haven, turned whatever it felt like that week. I docked the Wanderlight between a neon-lit salvage barge and something that looked suspiciously like a sentient vending machine. The airlock hissed open to the usual scent of rust, ozone, and desperate capitalism. Inside the hollow veil, a bar that had survived 3 fires, 2 marriages, and 1 very confused time loop. The lights were low, the drinks overpriced, and the atmosphere exactly the kind of place you'd expect to find regrets swimming in glasses of purple fizz. I ordered something that claimed to be fermented cactus milk and tried not to gag. That's when I saw her. She sat at the edge of the room, untouched by the buzz of noise and motion. Long silver hair that shimmered like event horizon dust. Skin pale, smooth, but with a faint glow, like she'd swallowed a star and hadn't finished digesting it. And her ears, long, graceful, curling back like Art Nouveau sculpture, moving faintly, like they listened to a frequency no one else could hear. She wasn't drinking, just watching. When our eyes met, it was like the ship's gravity failed for half a heartbeat. I'd love to say I played it cool, that I leaned back, tossed off a clever line. But I choked on my cactus milk and nearly fell off the stool. She stood without a sound, approached with a grace that made the rest of the room feel clumsy by comparison, and slid into the booth across from me like she'd always belonged there. "You stared," she said. "You glowed, I replied. She tilted her head, and her ears twitched. Amused, I thought. "Illyra," she said. "Elias," I answered, extending a hand, then awkwardly withdrawing it when I remembered she might interpret that as an offer of blood, or spleen, or something. "I don't drink from strangers," she said, smile faint. "Not anymore." "Well, I'm not sure I even count as a beverage." "You're Funny, she said slowly, like she was tasting the word. Most people run. I'm built different, mostly out of bad decisions. She laughed, a small sound, like wind chimes in vacuum. It shouldn't have been possible. I felt like I was in a dream I hadn't agreed to have. But it was real, and she was real, and her gaze held no malice, only tiredness. Centuries of it, wrapped behind beauty and silence. They warned me you were dangerous, and I said, testing the water. They warned me about humans, she replied, that you're always trying to be the hero of someone else's tragedy. Guilty, I said, but I have great hair, so I get away with it. Her smile widened. It didn't reach her eyes. We talked. About nothing, about everything. I told her about the time I accidentally married a hologram priestess. She told me about the time her people tried to drain a sun just to see what it tasted like. I don't know how long we stayed there. Hours, days, time was slippery in the veil. She never touched her drink, and when I finally stood to leave, something in her shifted. A question, unspoken, hanging in the space between breath and heartbeat. Do you want company? She asked, like it was the smallest thing in the world. My brain screamed. Marnie screamed louder, flashing warnings on my wrist. But my heart, stupid, unreliable, half-drunk on starshine and sadness, just nodded. I do, I said. She took my hand. Her touch was warm. And just like that, I knew. I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life, and that I'd make it again in a heartbeat. Marnie refused to open the airlock. Not metaphorically. It literally wouldn't cycle the door, which meant I was standing in the dim corridor outside the Wanderlight, holding a duffel bag, a half-eaten protein bar, and the hand of a probably lethal alien vampire woman with a calm expression and ears that twitched like radar dishes. You've brought her here, Marnie's voice crackled through the overhead speaker, panicked and unusually shrill. On our ship. Elias, do you remember what happened the last time you brought someone home from a bar? Those were entirely different circumstances, I said. She set the bathroom on fire with her mind. She had dietary restrictions. She also tried to marry the toaster. That toaster had it coming, I muttered, then turned to Elira with what I hoped was a reassuring smile. Marnie's just cautious. He sounds anxious. I think that's his natural state. She tilted her head, and her ears gave an approving flick. It's charming, like an old dog who thinks it owns the house. Marnie sputtered something untranslatable over the comms. I reached out and tapped the manual override. Warning, bypassing this lock may result in depressurization, fire, or spontaneous regret, the panel chirped. Story of my life, I muttered, then twisted the dial. The door groaned open. A hiss of recycled air met us, warm and slightly perfumed with eucalyptus and failure. Elira stepped aboard first, her boots making no sound on the metal floor. I followed, bracing for Mayar and E to do something dramatic, like lock me in the escape pod or recite the Galactic Constitution in protest. Instead, it went silent. Brooding, no doubt, already composing its passive-aggressive update logs. Nice ship, Elira said, glancing around the main deck. It smells like nostalgia and unresolved trauma. That's just the pilot's seat, I said. Don't sit there unless you want to weep about a breakup from 7 years ago. She smiled and wandered into the common room, fingertips brushing lightly over the wall panels like she was remembering something long forgotten. I followed, tossing my bag onto the couch and collapsing beside it with a sigh that felt like it had been waiting a week. I'm not exactly used to company, I said. I've noticed, she replied, studying a broken lava lamp like it was a sacred artifact. Your decor suggests a deep spiritual connection to clutter. I call it freelance minimalism. That's not what that means. It does in my tax reports. She wandered further, pausing at a shelf of ancient Earth memorabilia, a cracked snow globe, a rubber duck with 3 eyes, not a mutation, just a novelty item, and a collection of old music chips. She picked one up and held it close. You kept these, she said. I like the sound of old things, I replied. They're slower, less polished, like they remember being human. Elira turned to me with an unreadable expression. Her eyes shimmered, not glowing exactly, but catching the light in a way that suggested starlight had taken a liking to her. She crossed the room slowly and sat beside me, her movements precise and graceful, like someone used to silence. "Do you want to ask the question now?" she said. "What question?" "The one everyone asks, eventually." I hesitated. "Are you going to kill me?" She didn't laugh, but her smile curved softly, like moonlight over broken glass. "No," she said. "I would have done that in the bar. Less paperwork." "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched. "Everyone thinks I'm some ancient predator stalking the galaxy for blood and drama, that I'll tear out your essence the moment you blink." "Well," I said, scratching the back of my neck, "you did get flagged by the Intergalactic Hazard Agency with a red border and italic text." "Was it serif font?" I blinked. "Yes?" "Then they're serious," she said, nodding solemnly. We sat in silence for a moment, listening to the gentle hum of the ship's life systems. Somewhere deep in the ducts, the climate unit rattled like it was shaking dice. Illyra leaned back, watching the ceiling as if it held constellations I couldn't see. "My people weren't monsters," she said finally. "We fed, yes, on memory, on emotion, on connection. But it was sacred, a sharing. You gave of yourself, and in return, we gave peace, clarity, the warmth of stars. What changed?" "We started taking without asking." Her voice was soft, almost too soft. "Empires noticed. Corporations got involved. Some of us resisted. Some of us were erased." I swallowed. "And you?" "I left," she said. "I got tired of being a warning, of being hunted or worshipped or sold." I nodded slowly. "So why talk to me?" Her gaze flicked to mine. "Because you laughed. You made a joke when you should have run. And because," she paused, suddenly vulnerable in a way I hadn't expected, "I'm tired of silence." That hit me harder than I'd expected. Not because of the tragedy, though there was plenty of that, but because I understood it. Out here among stars and broken stations, silence wasn't just quiet, it was a presence. Heavy, endless. "Well," I said, clearing my throat, "you picked the wrong ship if you wanted peace and quiet." Marnie hums passive-aggressively, and I sing in the shower. "Do you sing well?" "Not even slightly." She smiled. A real one this time. Her hand drifted to mine again, light as static. No hunger, no danger, just a touch. "I don't want your blood," she said, the words so quiet they barely crossed the space between us. "I want your heart." My brain did a somersault. My heart panicked and started rehearsing vows. I cleared my throat, trying to recover. "Well, it's not in mint condition," I said. "Bit cracked. One previous owner. Occasionally makes weird noises when stressed." "I'll take it," she said, and that's when Marnie finally spoke again. "Just so we're clear," it said, deadpan, "if she eats you, I'm not cleaning it up." Illyra's laugh rang through the ship like wind through leaves. We slept in separate bunks that night, out of caution, out of habit, but the door between our rooms stayed open. Just a crack. The alarm went off at 0600 ship time, blaring like an angry goose shoved through a synthesizer. I flailed from my bunk and smacked the control panel with the urgency of a man who didn't want to face the universe before caffeine. The sound stopped mercifully, replaced by Marnie's dry monotone. "We've entered restricted space." I blinked blearily. "How restricted?" "On a scale of 1 to accidentally starting an interstellar conflict, somewhere between whoops and prepare your last words." I groaned, pulled on yesterday's shirt, and stumbled into the cockpit, where Illyra was already sitting in the co-pilot seat with unnerving serenity, sipping something that looked suspiciously like it came from my emergency stash of Neptunian chai. "You drink tea?" I asked. "I drink memory," she corrected, raising the cup. "But this is close enough. Tastes like homework and broken promises. I love it." "Great," I muttered, rubbing sleep from my eyes. "Glad to see we're appropriating my trauma for breakfast." The view outside was the opposite of reassuring. A cloud of black satellites hung in orbit around a dying moon, each one blinking red, forming a perimeter like an electric fence designed by someone with control issues. Beyond them, a shimmering wave of cosmic interference twisted in space. A gravitational rift, unstable and twitchy, like the universe had left a nerve exposed. Marnie pulled up a schematic. Welcome to Zone 9 Beta, former research colony, current no-go zone. Last transmission received, everything is teeth now, followed by static and the sound of someone screaming the periodic table backwards. Sounds like my last date, I muttered, then turned to Elira. You didn't accidentally plot our course through here, did you? No accident, she said, brushing a strand of starlight hair behind one ear. This is where I lost them. Lost who? My people, she said simply, or what was left of them. I blinked. You brought me to an abandoned horror lab filled with possible tooth monsters and certain death on purpose? It seemed like a good bonding activity. Next time, I said, let's just do bowling. We approached slowly. The satellites twitched but didn't fire. Either they'd run out of ammo centuries ago, or they were too afraid to look inside. The wander light threaded the gap between two of them, and I felt a shiver crawl across my skin like invisible ants doing synchronized yoga. I'm picking up residual energy signatures, M-A-R-N-E muttered. Lots of decay, but also something else. Define something else, I said. It's what I say when I don't want to panic you before lunch. The colony loomed into view, a fractured collection of domes and towers orbiting a cracked moon like mournful jellyfish. Lights blinked in some windows. Others flickered, dead or dying. We docked at what remained of a port, the mechanical arms stiff with rust and the faint promise of tetanus. I'm not stepping out there until I suit up, I said, pulling on my half-functional exojacket. The last derelict we landed on had radioactive cockroaches with knives. They were ceremonial knives, Marnie said. They stabbed me with them. Still ceremonial. Elira, of course, didn't need a suit. She just stepped out like a goddess on holiday, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. I followed, boots clanking against the warped floor of the docking ring, and immediately noticed that gravity felt wrong, like the ship was trying to guess how much I should weigh and getting it just slightly off. Inside the station, everything was old and rotting. Dust hung in the air like judgment. Machines flickered to life as we passed, some playing broken fragments of welcome messages in languages I didn't recognize. We walked past murals that had cracked with age, scenes of the Vampirian, once regal and solemn, painted alongside human scientists in collaboration. Peaceful expressions, shared tools. One showed a Vampirian touching a human's forehead, transferring a memory like a candle lighting another. They came here to end the hunger, Elira said, to find a way to live without taking. What happened? She didn't answer. We reached the heart of the station, a vast chamber with a ceiling like a cathedral, domed and filled with cables. A pod sat in the center, sealed, humming faintly. Around it, consoles blinked in dormant rhythm. Elira approached the nearest panel and touched it. The screen flared to life, revealing a playback. A Vampirian woman, older, worn. We succeeded, she said, her voice barely a whisper. The serum works. No more blood, no more memory theft. We're free. The recording skipped. The same woman now looked terrified. But the memories, they didn't vanish. They moved. They're still here. It is still here. Then static. I took a step back. Okay, time to go. That is the exact moment in every horror file where things go wrong. Elira's hand hovered above the pod. Someone's inside. Let them stay there, I said. Maybe they're napping. Maybe they're playing space Sudoku. Let's not wake up the plot twist. She ignored me, of course. With a hiss, the pod opened. Cold vapor spilled out. Inside was a child, pale, fragile-looking, with long, pointed ears and a faint blue glow under her skin. She opened her eyes, vast, reflective, like liquid silver, and blinked at Elira. Mother, she said. Elira staggered. I didn't think... Marnie's voice cut in. Energy levels spiking. Something just woke up, and it's not the kid. The ground shook. Oh no, I whispered. We've activated the teeth. Elira picked the child up, cradling her with unnatural gentleness, then turned to me. We run, she said. Great plan, I said, already sprinting. Next time, mini-golf. By the time we made it back to the ship, the floor of the station was buckling like it had opinions. I heard a deep rumble beneath us, less like machinery and more like a throat clearing with intent to kill. The child in Elira's arms clung to her silently, eyes glowing brighter now. Not blinding, but enough to make me question if I was hallucinating or just sleep-deprived. Spoiler, both. I'd ask what's going on, I said between gasps, but I'm afraid you'll tell me. It woke up, Elira said. The residual consciousness, the one born from the serum. Oh, good, I wheezed. A haunted science experiment. That's exactly what I wanted this week. That and fewer pants that ride up. We barreled into the airlock, Marnie already screaming through every comm channel like a mother hen with a neural implant. Why is there a child? Why are the seismic readings off the charts? Why is my hull screaming at me in ancient Vamphyrian? It's fine, I shouted. Just start the engines and try not to combust. I am aware of how to start engines, thank you. We sealed the hatch, I hit the emergency launch sequence, and the ship ripped free from the port with a lurch so violent I nearly bit my tongue. Outside the viewports, the station began to convulse. Domes caving in, towers collapsing, and then slowly, something began to rise. From beneath the moon's crust, a black shape unfolded. No eyes, no limbs, just shifting tendrils of data and shadow. It wasn't physical, not entirely. It pulsed in and out of visibility, flickering between dimensions like a glitch with a vendetta. That, I panted, is not a thing that should exist. It is every lost memory, Elira said softly. Every moment the serum stripped away, it clumped together, fed on emptiness, became that. I stared. You have got to stop bottling existential horror. The creature reached out, not physically, but with something deeper. The ship's systems flickered. Lights dimmed. Marnie let out a staticky whimper. It's trying to interface, the AI hissed. I've locked it out, but it's poking around my file system like an annoying cousin. What does it want? I asked. Everything, Elira said. It's made of need, of longing. Terrific, I said. We're being chased by a cosmic case of separation anxiety. The Wanderlight groaned as I pushed the engines. The jump drive was still cooling, which meant we were stuck in real space. And that meant we were slower than a caffeine-deprived sloth in a gravity well. We have 5 minutes before it breaches our outer shielding, Marnie warned. I looked over at the child, still silent in Elira's arms. Does she have any tricks? Secret weapons? Maybe a memory nuke she's been saving for a special occasion? She's not a weapon, Elira said. She's the key. She was born with memory stability. She remembers without feeding. Then can she remember how to fly this thing faster? A pulse of energy slammed against the rear shields. The ship jolted. The coffee machine exploded in a shower of despair and powdered regret. I like that machine, I muttered. You said it tasted like burnt shoes, Marnie said. I have complex emotional needs, okay? The creature surged forward, closer now. I could feel it pressing against my thoughts, whispering old secrets, childhood embarrassments, terrible breakups. I flinched as my mind filled with the sound of my 7th grade choir recital, a memory I'd buried so deep it should have required a drill to unearth. Okay, that's just cruel, I said. It's collapsing your mental walls, Elira said, looking for cracks. It's going to find a lot of cracks. The child stirred in her arms. She reached out, not to the monster, but to the controls. I blinked. Not to be that guy, but toddlers and navigation systems don't usually mix. She's not a toddler, Elira whispered. She's a crystallized neural archive with a heartbeat. Sure, I said. That makes so much more sense. The child placed her tiny hand on the console. Instantly, the ship's interface glowed white, symbols shifting into shapes I couldn't read but somehow understood. The engines hummed, smoother, clearer. The jump drive began charging faster. She's stabilizing the systems, Marnie said, sounding genuinely awed. She's using her memory to patch corrupted code. I didn't even know that was possible. She's anchoring us, Elira said, making us realer. Another hit rocked the ship, but this time the shields held with a crystalline tone, like glass humming in harmony with itself. She's fighting it, I breathed. She's remembering for us. The monster shrieked, not audibly, but inside my head. It was the sound of a billion voices realizing they were alone, forgotten. "Engines ready," MARNE said. "Jump now," I shouted. Space bent, stars smeared, time hiccuped, and then silence. We were somewhere else, quiet, safe, floating in a region of space where the stars looked oddly cheerful, like they hadn't seen eldritch horrors in a while. I slumped in my seat. "Well," I said, "on the bright side, this is probably the weirdest day of my life." Elira smiled faintly. "That was only a fragment. There are others," I groaned. "Of course there are. Always are. Why can't I fall in love with someone boring, like a space accountant?" "You'd die of boredom." "Maybe, but I'd die rich." The child looked up at us both. Her silver eyes shimmered, and for a moment I saw an entire lifetime behind them. One she hadn't lived, but carried anyway. Then she spoke again. "Hungry," she said. I blinked. "Okay, that could mean a few things." "She means food," Elira said quickly. "Probably." I got up. "Marnie, prep the kitchen. We're feeding a tiny immortal." "You're the one who said no more strays," Marnie grumbled. "Yeah, well, she saved us from a screaming memory cloud, so she gets a sandwich." "Fine, but if she eats the blender, I'm not replacing it." I turned to Elira. "So what now?" She looked at me, then at the child, then at the stars. "Now," she said, "we teach her how to forget, safely, gently, like breathing." "And in the meantime," she said, settling into the co-pilot seat with the grace of a 1,000-year-old soul who'd finally found a chair she liked, "we run and laugh and maybe make pancakes." "Pancakes," I repeated, "now that I can do." The stars wheeled by, uncaring. The ship hummed. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel entirely alone. Somewhere between the binary stars of Calyx Theta and the debris belt shaped like a disappointed parent, we ran out of pancake mix. I'm not saying that was the most pressing crisis in our lives, but the look Elira gave me when she opened the cabinet and found only a sad bag of dehydrated lentils suggested we were in uncharted territory. Emotionally, culinarily, and possibly spiritually. "I thought you stocked provisions," she said, holding the bag like it had personally insulted her entire lineage. "I did," I said, hands up. "But you've been feeding our immortal child alien portions, and I didn't anticipate she'd eat like a black hole with a sweet tooth. She's growing. She's absorbing cosmic memories and converting them into syrup cravings." "I'd be more worried," Marnie cut in, "about the approaching vessel currently broadcasting on all frequencies with increasing enthusiasm." "Define enthusiasm," I muttered, spinning to the console, like a used airspeeder salesman who just discovered caffeine and religion. The transmission finally cracked through, an audio stream full of static and yodeling, then a voice too cheerful for the grim vacuum of space. "Hello there, friendly space denizens. This is Captain Trax of the Grand Fortune Bazaar ship, traveling purveyor of goods, snacks, illegal spices, and emotionally dubious pets. Open your docking bay for a limited time offer." I blinked. Did he say emotionally dubious pets? "Yes," Marnie said, "and I'm terrified and intrigued in equal measure." "We need supplies," Elira said simply, "and the child wants sprinkles." "Why do we say the child like she's an ancient prophecy and not a sugar-fueled chaos gremlin?" "Because she's both," Elira said, brushing imaginary lint off her coat. "Open the bay." Docking with the Grand Fortune was like kissing a glitter bomb with intimacy issues. Lights flashed. Music played. Badly. A door opened with a cloud of synthetic fog that smelled like banana-scented anxiety. And out stepped Captain Trax himself. A squat, wide-grinned fellow in a velvet coat that defied known color spectrums, flanked by two assistants who looked like they'd been genetically modified to sell you insurance at knife point. "Welcome, space travelers," Trax said, arms flung wide. "Are you ready to buy things you didn't know you needed with currency you probably don't understand?" "I need pancake mix," I said. "And sprinkles," Elira added. "And something indestructible for a child who can eat memory," Marne muttered through the intercom. "Right this way," Trax beamed. "Also, may I interest you in a quantum toothbrush? It flosses your ancestors. We followed him through a maze of stalls and lights. The bazaar ship was enormous, bigger on the inside. Classic space-folding tech, patched together with ambition and duct tape. Alien vendors hawked goods in every dialect. One stand claiming to sell authentic Earth air in cans. I bought one out of pity. It tasted like old gym socks and optimism. The child, now wearing one of my old t-shirts as a dress, skipped ahead, utterly fascinated by everything. She stopped at a display of plush creatures that changed shape when stared at too long. I think that one just became my disappointment in college, I said. She likes it, Alira said, already scanning her credit chip. Eventually, we reached the food section. Tracks guided us to a shelf labeled Miscellaneous Earth Artifacts. It was mostly expired cereals and something that claimed to be mayonnaise-flavored pudding. You have pancake mix? I asked. Absolutely, he said. 3 varieties: regular, temporal, and extra sentient. I considered the implications. Does the sentient one talk back? Only if overcooked. We grabbed regular, in sprinkles, and a syrup bottle shaped like a screaming beetle, apparently a local delicacy on Glarax 7. The child held it like a trophy, but as we turned to leave, Alira stopped. Her posture shifted, subtle, alert. Her ears twitched. What is it? I asked. I sense them. Please specify whether them is friends, enemies, or tax auditors. Vampirian, at least 2. Watching. I glanced around. Nothing obviously fangy, but the bazaar was crowded, loud, and very good at hiding things in plain sight. The perfect place for a trap or reunion, or both. Could be a coincidence, I said. No such thing, she murmured. Great, and I just bought sprinkles. We moved fast. Not a run. That drew attention. A purposeful stroll, like parents late for a school recital with a nuclear reactor in the car seat. The child clung to the plush abomination, eyes scanning too intelligently. We nearly made it to the ship. Then they appeared. 2 figures, tall and pale, long-eared and elegant, like Alira, but sharper around the edges, more glass than flesh. Their suits shimmered with embedded circuitry, and their eyes glowed with cold familiarity. Sister, one said. Alira stiffened. Tovax and Lyrel. You should be dust. Tovax smiled thinly. We were, until we weren't. I stepped forward. Hi, sorry to interrupt the undead family reunion, but we've got a child who needs pancakes and 0 interest in philosophical sibling warfare. Lyrel's gaze turned to me. This is the human? He's mine, Alira said. Ah, Lyrel said, like I was a particularly disappointing sandwich. So it's true. Tovax moved closer, addressing the child. You carry the cure. The girl said nothing. She just hugged her plush horror and blinked. We need her, he said. You had your chance, Alira said, stepping between them. She's not yours. She belongs to all of us. I pulled out my stun pistol, mostly for show. It beeped pathetically as if embarrassed. You try to take her, I said, and I swear I'll do something dramatic and probably self-injuring. They paused, calculating. Then, with synchronized precision, they stepped back. Not here, Tovax said. Not yet, but we'll meet again. Blood calls blood. They vanished into the crowd like guilt into a holiday dinner. Back aboard the Wanderlight, we prepped for launch. That was close, I said. Too close, Alira muttered. I'm putting the pancake mix in a safe, I said. Why? Because every time we try to feed this kid, the universe throws a tantrum. The child crawled into my lap, plush in hand, and whispered, I like the weird people. Of course you did, I sighed. That's how I know you're ours. We launched, trailing glitter, sprinkles, and 1,000 new questions behind us. 3 hours into hyperspace, and the ship smelled like syrup and singed dignity. The child had attempted to cook on her own, which involved sticking the pancake mix directly into the hyperwave reactor's air intake and declaring it space-baked. The resulting explosion had technically improved the scent of the ventilation system, but Marnie refused to speak to any of us for a solid hour out of sheer principle. I'm just saying, I offered through a mouthful of lukewarm synthaflapjack. There's something poetic about breakfast nearly killing us, Like the universe wants us to appreciate the small things and the large fireballs. I'm still scrubbing batter from the auxiliary thrusters, Marnie grumbled. Do you know how hard it is to clean molecular gluten? Illyra sat across from me, sipping what she insisted was tea, but which I suspected had something more ancient and emotionally volatile in it. Her long ears twitched now and then. Something I'd learned meant either danger or deep contemplation. With her, those two states were alarmingly similar. We can't keep running, she said at last. I gestured around. But we're so good at it. They'll find us again. Tovax, Lyriel, and others. Once they know she exists, they won't stop. Then we stop first. You can't shoot an empire with a stun gun. You clearly haven't seen me try. The child floated into the galley, literally. She'd figured out the gravity toggle in her quarters and was now treating the ship like a zero-G amusement park. She cartwheeled slowly through the air, hair fanned out like a silver halo, her plush abomination tucked under one arm like it was her tiny evil advisor. Can I press the red button today? She asked, with far too much hope in her voice. Not unless you want to eject the kitchen into the void, I said. She considered this. But what if I just eject the bad smells? That's not how airlocks work. Then airlocks are poorly designed. I looked at Illyra. She gets that from you. I've never ejected a kitchen. Yet. We were drifting near the outer edge of the reticuli shroud, a region of uncharted physics-optional space where signals went to die and maps became suggestions. Marn E had warned against it, citing gravitational mirages and the occasional sentient asteroid with an attitude problem. But it was perfect for hiding or disappearing entirely. The child floated upside down beside me, her eyes half-lidded. There's something calling, she murmured. I glanced at Illyra. We should be the ones doing the ominous foreboding, not her. She's listening to the weave, Illyra said, which helped precisely zero. Explain. The energy net that connects memory. The serum didn't just cure forgetfulness. It awakened a path between minds. She can feel echoes. Great, so she's a psychic Wi-Fi node. The child suddenly pointed. There. Marnie pulled it up on the nav. Uncharted moon, class 3 atmosphere, no known signals. Sounds like a vacation, I said. Sounds like bait, Illyra replied, already strapping on her boots. We landed softly on the moon's crust. Pale blue rock stretched out in soft dunes, sparkling faintly like crushed ice. The atmosphere buzzed, not loud, but deep in the bones, like standing near a subwoofer the size of a small planet. The child led us toward a crevice barely wider than a cargo chute. I sense a great deal of discomfort in the future, I said. No more than usual, Illyra said, and jumped in. Inside, we descended into a chamber not carved by tools, but by memory itself. Walls pulsed faintly with stored impressions. Laughter, sobs, music, war. Faces flickered across the stone, ethereal and shifting. I recognized none of them, and all of them. The child stepped forward, hands out. The chamber responded, lighting up with a soft hum, like someone tuning a galaxy-wide orchestra. A voice filled the air, old, feminine, and far too calm for my liking. You brought her, it said. At last, Illyra tensed. I know that voice. A figure emerged from the far wall, not through a door, but through the memory fabric itself. She looked like Illyra, older and sharper, long ears, violet eyes, and a presence like starlight wrapped in threat. Mother, Illyra said tightly. I blinked. You didn't mention you had a terrifying memory ghost for a mom. She's not a ghost, Illyra said. She's worse. I heard that, the figure said. What are you? I asked. I am Archive, she said simply. The first carrier. When the serum was new and untested, I became the vault. Every memory the Vampirian discarded, I kept. For millennia, the child moved toward her without fear. She is the next vault, Archive said, but different. She can choose what to remember, what to let go. She's not your successor, Illyra said. She's a child. She's a key. I stepped between them. Okay, let's cool it with the destiny talk. She's already gone full pancake wizard this week, She doesn't need an existential crown. She was born to balance the bleed, Archive said, eyes fixed on the girl. But she needs a guardian, a bond, one tied by blood and choice. The chamber pulsed. A vision washed over us. Elira standing before a tribunal, child in her arms, serum in her veins. Her exile, her silence, her refusal to turn the girl into another weapon. You chose love, Archive said, and so you were cast out. But that love has shaped her. Elira looked at the child. She's not a vault. She's a person. She is both. I stared at Archive. Why are you telling us this? Because others are coming. Not Vampirian, not human. Something older. Something drawn by the echoes she carries. You must leave. Take the chamber's seed. From the wall a crystal bloomed, glowing, pulsing with data too deep for words. She'll know what to do with it, Archive said. And if we say no, I asked, then the past will feed on the future. The child walked forward, touched the crystal, and it shrank into a pendant in her hand. I want pancakes, she said. I support that, I said quickly. Elira scooped her up, the pendant now hanging around her tiny neck. Let's go, she said. Outside, the stars seemed closer, hungrier. We lifted off, leaving the Archive behind. Marnie said nothing for a long time. Then, I downloaded 32 conflicting religious texts just to process what I witnessed. And now I believe in at least 6 new afterlives. I stared at the child. She smiled at me, syrup still stuck in her hair. Do you know what you're carrying? I asked softly. She nodded. All the broken pieces. And she wasn't afraid, not even a little. That terrified me more than anything. The stars were no longer quiet. Somewhere between the 8th Veil Nebula and the intergalactic toll zone. Yes, that's a thing, don't ask how they collect. The universe had begun to hum like it knew the melody to a very old, very strange lullaby. It wasn't exactly a warning, but it wasn't comfort either. Like a song your grandmother hums just before revealing that she used to be a pirate queen. Marnie had taken to reciting poetry, bad poetry, to ward off the stress. Oh photon, oh wave, oh radiant beam, why must your speed be so obscene? He droned through the intercom. Elira was cleaning her pulse blade with the precision of a surgeon and the patience of someone who really wanted an excuse to use it. The child sat on the floor playing with her plush monster, humming in tune with the stars, which would have been adorable if the plush hadn't started blinking on its own last week. She's sinking again, I said, glancing at the shifting pulse of light around the pendant hanging from her neck. She's growing into it, Elira replied, though her jaw was tight. She's glowing into it, you mean? The pendant had become a kind of tuning fork for cosmic weirdness. It reacted to memory echoes, subspace harmonics, and apparently whatever the child had for breakfast. We'd been on the run for days, if you could call zigzagging across collapsing wormholes and dodging gravity riptides, running. After Archive, it hadn't taken long for others to notice. Scanners pinged with ships of unknown design, unregistered biosigns, and at one point, an entire fleet made of living metals shaped like regret. I didn't even know regret had a shape. They're converging, Marnie said, displaying a map that looked less like a tactical readout and more like a bowl of angry spaghetti. On us? On her. The child pointed at a nearby star system, her eyes unfocused. There. Elira didn't even question it. She just adjusted course. Don't you think it's a little dangerous to trust the visions of someone who once tried to adopt a toaster? I asked. That toaster had a name, the child muttered. It also set my socks on fire. We entered orbit around a planet that shouldn't have existed. Flat data, blacklisted by half the federations, and according to Marnie, more theoretical than my dating life. The surface shimmered like obsidian under starlight, but the readings showed breathable air, low gravity, and no life, until we landed. They were waiting, not ships, not soldiers, but echoes, memories, thousands of them. They didn't attack. They didn't speak. They just stood, tall, flickering humanoid forms, each made from light fractured by time. One stepped forward, its voice like glass wind chimes caught in a solar breeze. She carries the core. She carries cereal, I whispered. She insisted on bringing snacks. She carries the archive seed, the echo corrected. Illyra stepped protectively in front of her. You can't have her. We don't want her. We want peace. Another voice joined. She is the end of forgetting. And a third. She is the choice. The child walked toward them. I panicked. Maybe let's not send the ancient memory nuke into the crowd of glowing time ghosts? But Illyra held me back. She knows what she's doing. I stared at her. You realize she once confused the warp drive with a juice dispenser, right? Still, the child reached the center of the field. The pendant floated from her chest, spinning in midair. The echoes surrounded her, not threatening, but reverent, as if waiting. I choose, she said softly. Light exploded, not in a destructive way, but like reality had been holding its breath and finally let it go. The echoes merged to a single form, a woman, neither alive nor dead, neither present nor past. Her features were alien and familiar, regal and tired. I was the first, she said, and now I am the last no longer. The child took her hand, and just like that, the pendant dimmed, its job done. What did she do? I asked as they walked back. She linked them, Illyra whispered, all the scattered memories, all the broken pieces. She gave them choice, purpose. The figure nodded. We will no longer drift, we remember together. The echoes faded, peacefully, like dust rising in morning light. We returned to the ship, strangely quiet. You okay? I asked the child as I helped her out of her gear. She nodded. They were lonely, like I used to be. I looked at Illyra. She looked at me. And in that moment, I realized just how far we'd come. From the cargo run gone wrong, to the bloodless vampire with a heart full of guilt, to the child born of science and sorrow. We were a family, a weird, dangerous, mildly combustible family. What now? I asked as the ship lifted off. Illyra leaned back in her seat. We keep her safe. We teach her bad jokes. We eat questionable food. We fly. And if the universe needs saving again, we'll let someone else handle it next time. The child giggled. Can we go visit the space whales again? Marnie groaned. Only if they agree not to sing through the hull this time. They were in tune, I defended. You have the musical taste of a dying engine. Outside, the stars didn't hum anymore. They sang, and we drifted among them. No longer running, no longer hiding. Just home. The end.